Welcome, everybody. Right, so just admitting everybody. So we're obviously all ready to go here. Um, let's obviously have a look at what's been happening. What did we discuss yesterday? All right, why we're obviously buying the dollar. There was obviously more chance of it hitting 97,500 and rejection. I can't tell you enough, guys. On the DXY chart, have a line drawn up for every 500. It will help guide you into obviously where you're potentially could take trades obviously where it might reject everything. It's that extra tool, and it's brilliant. But obviously what did we discussed yesterday was obviously we were trading in this area here, and I did mention there's more chance of it coming up. Now we've broken 97 to 97,500 than there was it coming back up to 96,500. So that's obviously one thing that we've always got to be aware of, and obviously edges us on the side. We've although we haven't had as many trades trigger as what we'd have liked this week. One positive that I take from it is that we've got the direction right every single time. All right. So that's one thing that, we obviously need to make sure that we are very, very proud of. Then let's obviously look at yields here. All right. So yields, let's have a look at yesterday. Sort of had a little bit of a rebound here. Yields still aren't kind of flying. I think for dollar to push a lot higher, we need yields back in this area here. So we need a good week this week, and obviously need them to pop back in, and then obviously we can have a bit more confidence in the US dollar overall. Stocks obviously still holding at all-time highs, so that's obviously one thing that we should be aware of. Obviously, these are all US based stocks, so yeah, it's a good sign. It's a good sign. So that's why I do think dollar is lagging massively. So yeah, let's wait and see. So like we do every morning, you want to be obviously monitoring these before you even looking at a pair. I want everyone to know the direction they're going to take a pair before they actually even pop on a chart. All right, it should be like that. It should be that easy. So if I refresh this page, already been on it this morning. Very, very similar to US. We have got lower CPI data. What does that do? Less pressure on the pound. So it means they can reduce interest rates if they want to. There's no stress, no pressure because inflation is low. So that's obviously why we should see, especially after the data yesterday, we should see the pound start to drop a little bit. So I was absolutely gutted this morning. I just hopped back onto GBP USD because there was a part of me that almost entered here as as it popped up. But yeah, I didn't. But obviously, it's not had this follow through yet. There's obviously a little bit of support here. We do have to remember that dollar has been trending to the upside, so it will need a bit of a relax. And obviously, that's where we've got our zones a little bit higher. So if dollar weakens, it's going to bring price into our zone where we're going to be happy to then sell the continuation to the downside. So that's why I don't trade candles. I just want to wait for price to come into our zone and then we can capitalize on it. So that's the main thing. So a bit later on, we got durable goods. We have got some GDP. So we obviously got a little, some wholehearted US data here, but nothing that's gonna kind of wipe the floor with anything. So let's wait and see what happens here. I'm pretty um, open-minded about obviously where dollar could head. I do think, we're probably today more than ever, if we're looking at the dollar, we're kind of trapped between the two here. I don't think we're going to break down below 97. I do think, next test might be 98 here, but it needs a good week. We need yields to start to trend a bit higher, and then I do think that we can continue. One thing that we've been caught out on this week, yesterday and the day before, is if we had just held our morning trades a little bit longer, then obviously we would have been okay because we didn't have that continuation or that pullback in the afternoon. it just continued down. So I'm going to be a bit aware of that. You constantly got to keep an eye on, what is happening and why. So yeah. Right, let's just have a look at what else we have got here. We got obviously Bowman speaking or Bowman speaking, and then we've got some FOMC meeting minutes later on today. This obviously, should be quite interesting leading into tomorrow. Don't trade it, but obviously let's just let it happen. Remember, right, I'm going to go through our trades now, but get your questions ready. It was relatively quiet yesterday, so let's obviously make sure we get some questions in because that's one of the pros of me going live while we're trading live. So Aussie, very very similar to everything. Just expecting, just wanting everything just to pop up a tiny bit. I do want the dollar to come back down here and just retest, and that's the idea of these, zones. You're almost wanting price to come with you. So, and obviously, one thing I mentioned, there are videos in there from Saturday morning. One good kind of strategy to obviously have to learn about being okay to be in a bit of drawdown is having potentially three entries, right? Because you're gonna actually there'll be a part of you that's wanting all three entries to be hit, all right? And then we go this way, right? You're gonna subconsciously want your trade to go into drawdown so you can add on because we're confident in the overall direction. You guys, see day in, day out how obviously, accurate we are the directional wise. It's been like one day a month where we've been caught out, but obviously directional wise, we've been doing very, very well. So the idea of that is, yeah, you're going to actually want your trades to obviously go into a bit of drawdown so they trigger a bit more. GBP USD, I don't know if we're going to get lucky enough. I might be tempted to extend this now to the top of this here. We might get lucky enough to tap this. I don't know if we're going to tap that one there. Euro is just not playing ball. If you think that's moved, yeah, it hasn't even come back at all. I think if we don't get any trades trigger this morning, I'm going to go ultra ultra aggressive later on because this is annoying me. So we obviously had trades trigger Monday morning. We didn't have anything in the afternoon. We had trades trigger yesterday morning. We didn't have anything in the afternoon. Obviously, I put out a random gold short yesterday. That was brilliant. It was this one here. This candle here is no, this one here. Sorry, it was perfect. And obviously, our TP was 480. I think 48. No, 4840. I think I come out of 4860. It was just epic. But obviously, again, so I will be going ultra aggressive. So do not worry if we don't have anything trigger. I'm pretty sure we're going to have everything trigger a bit later on. I'm going to go, you know, beast mode on it. And then obviously USD JPY struggling a bit at the moment. USD JPY, you can see here we got this consolidation here. So price drove down here, and now it's kind of struggling. We do have obviously heavy support here, 152 500 and 153. That's obviously why we've come back into this area. For us to buy, we want to be buying in this area here. All right. This is a prime example here about, value for, money. All right. And I'm going to obviously utilize USD JPY as a little bit of an example here. All right. If we go on the hourly, you can see obviously where price is. Yeah. All right. Why would we be looking to buy from here? Yeah. All right. Where price currently is. Because look at what's happened here. All right, I'm going to highlight these in like green, yeah. All right, look at the amount of rejections we've had from this area. Even when we broke back through clean, we've broke back through. The when it would have gone into support, we've broken back through. So this area here, as you can see, is our best form of entry. There's nowhere else which I would consider a safe place to enter. You might potentially want to go a little bit more aggressive, which is going to be this angle here. All right, potentially this. You can also drag this all the way back, if you want to. But obviously, this is another one here where you might want to go a little bit more aggressive, but you've obviously got to be a bit careful here. Um, so to me, if we're going to have the best opportunity, because we've got a lot of resistance here, so you're not going to want to buy from here unless you get a scenario where this happens. All right, that I would understand, but not right now, you know. And then obviously you've got the other kind of scenario here of right, do I buy from here? But then you can see how many times it's broken through. So to me, our safest entry is anywhere within here, and then hopefully we catch it where it does actually break through this area of resistance here, which has been really struggling to break through. Yeah. All right. So that's what we're going to be kind of looking at here. So yeah, let's wait and see what happens. But yeah, that's obviously one of the things that I'm going to be looking at, looking to target. So yeah, right. Let's go through some questions. Let's go through some questions. AUD USD triggered. Let me have a look. Yep. I'll just check mine. Yep, mine has triggered just about, but obviously, it wouldn't surprise me if lots haven't triggered. So do not worry. Right, let me just pull this down again. So Adam, I had 4935 marked up as resistance on gold from yesterday. Didn't take it and reacted from it. I still have it set up on the 1 hour candle. I have entered as I was up at 4. Let's have a look. 4935. 493535. Yeah, I'm not really yeah, I wouldn't obviously go against you here, but obviously yeah, I just wanted to wait a little bit higher. You can see there's plenty here. We're also bashing against this 200 EMA here on the 2 hour. Let's go down a little bit. Yeah. So it wouldn't surprise me that's probably nice, obviously aggressive entry. I think I just need to go a bit more aggressive. I just liked on the 2 hour, you can see here how the EMAs are getting close, yeah. Well, if price comes up here, both this 50 here is finally going to cross, all right, and that is the perfect entry then. So that's why I'm just trying to be a little bit more patient here. But yeah, does anyone have any more questions? Any more for any more? Come on, guys, hit me up. You've got me here. Ask me anything. That's obviously the beauty of obviously these, lives is you can ask me anything. Um, and then obviously, yeah, we can go through it. But obviously, if you don't ask, I can't answer. So, but yeah, this week's a bit about being nice and patient and making sure that you are um yeah, just not obviously not worried about kind of missing out. All right, because we're always going to have weeks like this. We got to tweak it slightly, might potentially have to be a bit more aggressive, even though remember it's only quarter past 8. So within the next hour we could have two or three more trigger. So just be aware of that. But everything is moving very, very slowly. If you look at London Open right now, nothing's really happening, right? Nothing is really happening here. If you look at pounds, the only active one with a bit of news here, and obviously that's only moved this much. All right, we've then got obviously euro, not moved much at all. All right, so just obviously, yeah, be aware of what is happening here. All right, gonna get another chance here on AED USD. I really want pound. If I could have a choice, it would be pound. I want GBP USD to trigger this morning. Like I'd said, I might move my trigger a little bit earlier to the top of this wick here. But yeah, that would be the one. And obviously gold. I really like how these on the 2 hour, these EMAs are, lining up to cross. Plus obviously trend, you can't really be looking to buy gold after obviously, look, there is a clean trend here. All right, potentially might pop up here, clean trend. Yeah. All right, until this trend changes, we've got to go with trend. So here we go. We've got some questions. Got loads now. Is the weather good in England for golf? Not really. I played last week, probably the first time this year. I've actually played 18, and it was wet. It was like putting on a football pitch after they've played on it. It was awful, but no, it's it's starting to warm up a bit. So yeah. Um, Darren, hi Dan. I'm personally happy with the safer entries. They've been amazing. I feel with the safe entries, I have to accept there will be sessions where nothing triggers. When taking a more aggressive approach, I want to be cautious. Would it be a good idea to enter in the middle of the range? No, just obviously, if you like I mentioned, and there's a video in the group that I did on, Saturday. It was quite detailed. When we go a bit more aggressive, I would always recommend splitting your entry into three and doing this, because then you're obviously, you're splitting your risk up here, so yeah, that's what I would recommend. You know, so because obviously that idea of the basket is, once you've obviously hit your, session target, if it's going well, you can obviously run it. If it's not, then you can obviously just obviously take your session target or daily, But obviously the idea of the basket, one I've noticed that obviously some people struggle to close a loss, but obviously they'll close wins. Whereas if you're looking at everything from aggregate point of view, then yeah, you're going to do really, really well, and obviously having a loss won't bother you because if you've closed out and there's more wins than there is, losses and you've hit your target, you're just going to ignore it. So yeah, that's what I would do. To David, I haven't got anything down, just absorbing all the good info you're giving, no problem. Can you please explain how the yields and US macros are showing where weakness and strength in sector is? Sure. So if you just look at, yields, all right, as the big money flowing into the dollar, all right, these are obviously government bonds. You get a percentage of a government bond, and obviously the higher the percentage, the more that it's going to entice, someone to invest into a US government bond. All right, so naturally, if the US drop their interest rates, that's going to obviously drop, the rate of interest that obviously, you would get if you put your money into the US. All right. So how the whole FX markets work is, if you're getting more for your buck in, I don't know, in, Europe. So if the interest rate remains higher, you're going to put your money there. All right. Yes, you got crazy, like there is the exotic markets, which is like Turkey, Brazil. Their interest rates are crazy. They can go from like 19% down to 3%, down to 25%, down to 50%. It's mental. But obviously, the safer assets. I think yen's going to be the interesting one because if yen does raise rates, then obviously yen is going to be a very, very safe place. I mean, come on, well, obviously, the Japanese are a very, very, money smart culture, So I think that would be, up there, top of my list to obviously put money in and know that you're going to be looked after. But obviously they play on that fact by having a negative interest rate. So but yeah, that's obviously how you've got to look at it. So there's lots of different ways that you can split it up. If for example, like this morning, all right, we got the stock market up, all right, we've got yields up, we got dollar up, we've also got gold up. 1%. Gold is up, but then we've got to break everything down. All right, is gold up because dollar had its everything has to flow. Obviously, remember for if price can't just keep going this way, all right, price has to come down for two reasons. One, because lots of these guys who have bought from down here have taken their profit off the table. Yeah. Or it's, what they would class as, potential manipulation. All right. There is no retail traders moving markets here. All right. But obviously, what do these guys want to happen? All right. They want to buy more because they can see some optimism in the dollar. All right. So they're going to release market a bit by taking a bit of their, capital out. All right. To drop market. All right. So everyone knows that everyone's looking at 97,500. All right. Even institutions are looking at 97,500. They take a bit of profit off the table. That drives markets down. Everyone starts to sell because it's like a chain reaction. And then obviously what ends up happening once we come into this area, which is, support here. All right, they start to buy again. And then obviously that is how you get a trend. All right, it is that easy. So, that's probably why I feel gold is up. I think gold probably won't end the day up unless obviously we have some, negative data. But obviously, I like the idea of yields starting to climb and stocks obviously staying where they are. So money's not fluidly flowing into the dollar, but it's starting to trickle in. All right, and obviously a trickling tap can be turned up at any time, and obviously we need to be aware of that. Why is gold up? Yeah, I've just explained that. Do you ever reference the daily, weekly for overall direction of markets before taking a trade? Um, I like to probably I will have a look at the daily just out of interest, but obviously, I'm not a day trader. I'm an intraday. So one thing that I've learnt, from obviously, from some of the meetings that I have had is yes, hedge funds will look at quarterly, monthly, um, weekly, daily. All right. And then we've then obviously got us who are intraday. We want to trade off the 2 hour. All right. And then obviously you've got, scalpers, which is probably 90% of the market who are looking at 5 minute. But actually, yes, I used to look at dailies and, weeklies. And obviously you can utilize it, if it's done properly. So for example, one really, really good scenario that I have is if you were to go on a line chart, all right, and then mark your daily, weekly, monthly off of a line chart, you're not going to be manipulated by candles. You're just going to be manipulated by price, yeah? All right, and then see obviously where it is, where obviously so you might want to mark a line up here, yeah? All right, because it's reacted here, but then I do think, from obviously what they've explained, it's very, very subjective. So I have changed my kind of I have changed my outlook slightly. Um, um, VP, I know you have answered this, but why do you only concentrate on these four FX pairs plus gold? I went to I went and obviously sat down with this guy and obviously he basically told me how each department that they have specializes in a currency. All right, and I've always been very, 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 very aware of how many jobs you have to do as a day trader. All right, so compared to a potential hedge fund or whatever, doing it, you're doing everyone's job. All right, so you're doing enough anyway. You're analyzing, you're obviously taking the risk parameters in, and then you got your entry and exits. All right, so one thing that he highlighted from obviously speaking to me and obviously me speaking to him was that I'm obviously pretty good on the US dollar. All right, I only had this meeting in November, and as you can see here, we've done pretty well, well, very well, since then. I think it was the 16th we started it. So we've only since November we've had one, two, three losses, three losing days. Now, that's obviously that's why I trade everything against the dollar. All right, because then I've only really got to worry about where the dollar is. All right. I don't really need to worry about pound or, yen or, like I used to have lots of different ways which were profitable, but I think even I was overcomplicating, how I wanted to trade. So, me just if I know exactly where the dollar is at all times, where it might potentially be heading, why, and then all I got to do is spend a little bit of time on Aussie, pound, euro, and yen. All right, but my majority is obviously on the US dollar. All right, so if you specialize, you can specialize in any currency. I would if you're from the UK, I'd either do the dollar or the pound. So you might want to do GBP AUD, GBP JPY, GBP USD, and they're then potentially gold. Because you're then specializing pound because we live here. If you get to understand looking doing a deep dive into the economy, then obviously you're going to really understand where the pound is at and obviously how it's rated compared to everything else. Martin, footsie has been a scalper's dream this morning. Do you ever do any scalping? I hate scalping. I lost so much money scalping. I don't like it. I don't want to stress. I understand why everyone scalps. I really do, but um, it's just not for me. I want to. I've realized there are two types of me trading. There's the guy who trades who enjoys it. That's the scalper me, all right? Or there's the guy, because I've always had a bit of a gambling, mentality. I well, when I was younger, I did fruit machines, I did football betting, I did horse racing. That was when I was younger. And obviously that I always, say there's two types of personalities of traders. There's the gambler, and then there's the, reserved, um, reserved trader. We've obviously got both types here. All right, airing more towards the gambling mentality because that's obviously, why everyone gets into trading. And obviously, what ends up happening is your addiction to gambling. You justify it through trading because it's a little bit better to speak about. All right, but actually if you're scalping and you don't have, you're just basing it off a drawing, right? You might as well be, playing cards at the casino, all right? Because these are just as manipulated as a casino dealer. All right, and I think the lower time frame you go, it's just gambling, and then it's just you managing your risk to reward. But one thing that I've noticed is if you've got a bit of a gambling mentality, and I'm not saying this is you, Martin, at all. I'm using this as a general. If you've got a bit of a gambling mentality, scalping is going to be what you're going to be more fed into. I understood this. It took me too long. It took me 4 years to realize that obviously I was probably justifying a bit of my gambling addiction. I wasn't hugely addicted to gambling. I mean, I hadn't, but obviously I had probably spurts when I was younger. And I think a bit of that me came out in trading, and obviously nothing, it was never enough, like I could make 3 grand in in a day trading, and it just wouldn't, yeah, I just wouldn't look at it as real money, which is crazy, really, because I wasn't making that, and obviously it'd take me 8 years to get to where I was in my industry, and I wasn't making that. So that's why I've obviously got my routine. I'm very, very strict with it, and I'm very, very strict to encourage everyone to do this because I know the mentality that I had, and obviously I speak to lots of guys, and obviously I, speak to guys who have had, issues or are having issues, and it's all because of, over trading, scalping, over risking, and obviously this whole industry has become built on scalping because it's feeding in, advertising and groups feed into the excitement of scalping. All right. And that's why you will join a particular trader because he's scalping. He's made 15 grand in 3 minutes. That's like the best advert ever. But obviously, it's not realistic because he can also, lose 100 grand in, 3 minutes. So yeah, that's obviously my long-winded speech over. But obviously that is why I do obviously what I do because one, we are profitable, and obviously two, we're obviously never ever going to be caught out. And obviously that's the most important thing to me. So yeah. So right, I've ended this one on a really long-winded, serious speech. But no, I hope you made some money there this morning anyway, Martin. So right, have a great dad day, everyone. Let's make sure we stay rigid. Obviously, if we don't have any triggers, I'm gonna go be beast mode later. So be prepared. All right. Have a good one, guys. Have a good one.